The movie opens in a small city in Berlin in the hot summer of 2003. One morning, a teenager, Lucas, cannot enter his school because he's lost his student ID. Due to this, the security guards at the school gate do not let him pass. Left with no choice, Lucas heads to a convenience store, gets a drink, and texts his Italian friends Gino and Julius to hang out. Moments after, Lucas's already school-cutting friends catch up with him. They usually spend their time smoking pot and trying, largely unsuccessfully, to hit on girls. After their brief meetup, the boys plan to buy some weed in the nearby park. However, they get caught in the rivalry of two groups of dealers. Initially, Julius approaches the Arab dealers, but they seem to be bothered by the presence of a German, i.e. Lucas. It turns out they're having some Cold War against the Germans due to the ongoing social reforms in Berlin. Soon enough, Ali, the gang leader, picks on Lucas, who stays rather submissive. Lucas's subservient nature further provokes the leader, and consequently, he gets punched in the face pretty badly. The Arabs then threaten Lucas and his friends to never step foot in their neighborhood. Lucas is furious at Julius and Gino for trying to deal with the ruthless Arabs instead of contacting their usual supplier, Cem, the leader of another gang. Regardless of what happened, the boys approach Cem for some weed. This leader, who seems to have a good relationship with Lucas, becomes concerned when he sees his battered face. When he learns that the Arabs, their rival gang, are behind this, Cem is determined to avenge his friend. Furthermore, Julius provokes Cem by claiming that the Arabs supposedly badmouthed him. Following this, Cem rounds up his gang members along with Lucas, Gino, and Julius and heads to the rivals' neighborhood. A mass brawl soon breaks out until the police arrive. In the ensuing fight, Lucas and Gino get beaten up very badly, while Ali fractures his hand. Consequently, one of the drug dealers demands 500 euros from Lucas as compensation for the police intervention on their turf. The teenager is told to bring the money to the same park at 3 p.m. tomorrow. When Lucas returns home that evening, he gets scolded by his father. Lucas's older brother Marco is a living street legend in the district and keeps his head above water as a petty criminal. He also has a small brother who, just like Lucas, is a victim of a bully in their neighborhood. His father Matthias is unemployed and overwhelmed with parenting 3 kids after the death of his wife. The following day, Lucas goes to school using his small brother's ID. During class, he is praised by his teacher for his well-written essay. The teacher also points out that Lucas perhaps has the greatest potential to make something of himself. However, the teenager is not paying any attention to what his teacher has to say. He is rather preoccupied with the other day's event. He tells Gino that they owe 500 euros to the Arabs. Gino then promises to bring his savings to clear their dues, so he heads home. Just then, the headmaster enters the class and introduces a new student, the half-Cuban Sanchez. The scene then shifts to Gino's home, where he tries to gather his savings from a safe. When his father hears some noise in the attic, he calls for Gino and asks him to join them for lunch. It is revealed that Gino suffers greatly from his father, a violent and hot-headed alcoholic who terrorizes him and his mother. The teenager's father has learned that his son is skipping school almost every day. When asked about it, Gino doesn't lie and confirms the truth. Consequently, he gets beaten by his father. When his sobbing mother tries to stop the fight, she too gets harassed. Back at school, Lucas and his classmates attend an assembly where it's announced that the Berlin Council has donated 50 brand new computers to the school administration. Lucas is still worried sick about not being able to pay the hefty amount of money on time. After school, he calls Gino and asks whether he's bringing over his share of the money. Gino sadly tells him that he cannot make it due to personal reasons. Lucas has no other choice than to call Julius and ask him for the dues. The scene then shifts to Julius's place, where he lives with his older brother in a rundown apartment. His brother is always drunk or stoned, screwing around with his buddies during the day. Despite his dire financial condition, the loudmouth Julius is always up for the party, girls, and drugs, and sometimes takes his brother's gun with him. When Lucas calls him for money, Julius, like always, makes some reasons and ignores his buddy. Lucas is now extremely scared because the clock is nearly striking 3. He returns to his apartment, only to find that Sanchez, the new classmate, is also his new neighbor. It's revealed that Sanchez, who has a knack for stealing things, lives with his single mother, who can barely make ends meet financially, even with a job. But despite everything, she wants to be a good mother to her son. Lucas helps them move into their new apartment and even spends the evening at Sanchez's apartment, fearing that Ali and his friends might come by his place. Just when the boys are having a good time together, Ali calls him and demands the dues. The gang leader swears to do something very bad if the payments are not made any sooner. That night, Lucas, Gino, Sanchez, and Julius meet up together to come up with a plan for the payments. Before discussing anything, though, they go to a grocery store to get some drinks. With the help of Sanchez, they manage to steal alcohol and narcotics from the store. The teenagers then enjoy the stolen drinks, smoke some weed, and party together until reality hits again. To solve their money problems, Sanchez comes up with an idea to break into their school and steal the brand new computers. Initially, Lucas protests the idea because he thinks it would cause some serious trouble if they get caught. He even warns Gino about it, reminding him that his father would punish him severely. However, Lucas changes his mind when he realizes that his father's janitor job is barely enough to pay their rent or clear his dues. The following day at school, when there's a fight between two bullies, the class teacher intervenes. While trying to stop the commotion, the teacher mistakenly drops his staff keys on the floor. Lucas takes this opportunity to pick up the keys and take them with him. He then shows them to his buddies and makes plans to break into their school tonight. Later that night, the boys, excluding Gino, who ditched at the last minute, meet in front of the school gate and prepare to break in. Before officially going ahead with the plan, Lucas and Sanchez get into a small argument with Julius because the latter is rather loud and has also brought a gun, which could be pretty risky. Setting their differences aside, the three teenagers break into their school and steal some of the brand new student computers, LED ones that are worth thousands. Despite unprofessional execution, they succeed in their plan. While trying to get the computers home, though, Julius opens fire to threaten some drunkards in the streets. Regardless, the boys manage to stack the computers at Julius's apartment after evading his sleeping brother in the lounge area. The next day, the school is full of police officers and journalists, and the theft at the school attracts widespread media attention. Lucas gets a call from his brother, who is rather curious about the robbery. Marcos lets him know that the perpetrators will be caught sooner or later because the computers are registered so they can be tracked. However, Lucas doesn't reveal to his brother about his involvement in the robbery. The following day, the boys manage to sell 3 of the computers, but for a very disappointing sum. Regardless, they're happy to compromise because they finally have some cash in hand. For the 800 euros they received selling the computers, they go shopping and buy branded clothes, shoes, and pizzas, among other things. They also visit a private swimming pool to relax and party with girls. During this time, Julius falls in love with a girl named Denise. Meanwhile, the investigation continues at school for the missing computers. One day, Lucas is called in for a personal interview by his class teacher. Before entering the teacher's room, Lucas calls his brother Marcos, believing that they've been busted. Terrified, he admits to stealing the computers from school along with his buddies. Marcos initially scolds him and advises him not to slip his mouth under any circumstances. Once Lucas goes inside the teacher's private office room, he is questioned about the recent robbery. The teenager is extremely scared, but thankfully, his teacher doesn't believe Lucas to be the culprit. Instead, he suspects fellow students with an immigrant background and believes that Lucas, as a German student, could help him solve the case. The teenager remains mum throughout his interview and rushes out the door as soon as he has permission to do so. Later at home, Lucas's stepmother tells him that his father wants him to live with Marcos because the apartment is too crammed up for 4 people. The poor teenager is hurt and blames his stepmother for moving in because they lived comfortably before she came into their lives. The following day, however, Lucas's father apologizes to him for trying to kick him out while driving him to school. Much to their surprise, the drug dealers stop their car and start demanding money from Lucas. When Lucas fails to give them his dues, they demolish Lucas's father's car as punishment. That evening, Lucas tries to clarify the situation with the leader of the drug dealers, so he visits Ali's home. Ali is initially aggressive towards Lucas, but remains calm when his mom sees them. His mom then invites Lucas inside their apartment and tells the boys to sort out their differences. After much convincing by his mother and aunts, Ali decides to forgive Lucas and make amends with him. Later, when Lucas is preparing to leave the apartment and standing in front of the door, Ali demands the newly bought sneakers to make peace. Lucas reluctantly agrees to do so and leaves the place barefoot. Just when a trouble has been settled, another arises when Julius's brother learns about the remaining computers at his apartment. Lucas and the boys are then forced to move the computers out. Thankfully, Marco arranges a meeting with a guy named Abdul, to whom the boys can sell the remaining computers. They visit the specified location and meet their guy. However, the man doesn't pay them and simply drives away with the computers, leaving Lucas and his friends stranded in the middle of nowhere. But what the teenagers don't know is that the so-called Abdul guy is an accomplice of Marco's. It turns out that Marcos is now making money off the stolen computers for himself and using the money to pay off his own debts in the underworld. Marcos surely used his little brother's innocence to get the money for himself. It's briefly seen that Marcos uses Lucas's lost student ID from the opening scene of the film to roll cigarettes. In the meantime, Gino becomes increasingly desperate about the situation with his brutal father. To make it worse, he learns that his abusive father has also stolen all of his savings to buy alcohol. Gino is now on the verge of going crazy. After much consideration, he takes a drug given to him by Julius and gains courage from the intoxication. He then goes to the kitchen where his father is once again assaulting his mother. Grabbing a glass bottle, he hits his father on the head and seriously injures him. Then he gives a grim look to his mother and jumps out the window. When Lucas, Julius, and Sanchez hear about the incident, they rush to the hospital. On the way, however, they come across Chem, who is proud to show off his new hot girlfriend. Much to Julius's disappointment, she turns out to be none other than Denise. Evidently, she had been playing both the boys. A brief fight between Chem and Julius ensues, but the boys soon realize that going to the hospital is more important to them. The movie ends with Lucas and his buddies visiting the severely bruised but responsive Gino and hugging him as a sign of their true bond.